not to blow my nose.
Hey guys, it's Danielle Walker from Against All Grain. I am back for my weekly Tuesday live segment for you guys. I am here every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific, so 7 p.m. Eastern. Thanks so much for joining me. If you guys are here watching live, please leave a hello in the comments. Let me know where you're watching from, what you're having for dinner tonight. It is raining here. You can hear it on the rooftop, so hopefully you guys can hear me okay. But I'm going to make my skillet cornbread. It's grain-free, gluten-free, dairy-free. From my new book, Celebrations, we are having beef stew tonight with cauliflower mash because it's cold and rainy, and this just felt like the perfect accompaniment to it. So let's get started. Again, hi everybody. If you're just joining in, I'm Danielle Walker from Against All Grain, and I'm here every Tuesday live at 4 p.m. A lot of times I cook, sometimes I just sit and answer questions, sometimes I just pop on and say a quick hi. But today, like I said, I'm making this grain-free skillet cornbread from Celebration, so you can follow along on page 131 of your book. But this is my third cookbook, Celebration, so this recipe actually comes from the Father's Day section. I always joke that the Father's Day section should be renamed Mother's Day because it's kind of all of my favorite foods. There are a lot of the comfort foods, and so that cornbread has become everybody's favorite, which I love. It's so good with honey on it. If you can tolerate butter, a good smear of grass-fed butter is also delicious. But we usually make it with these baked beans, which are not actually beans, because you can't have beans on the paleo diet. And then this peach cobbler is also in that section. There's ribs in this section, so it's just really yummy comfort food, which is some of my favorites. So I'm gonna get started. If you guys have questions, go ahead and leave them live in the comments. I'm happy to answer them as we go along. And then I always go back and answer questions or leave links for you guys afterwards as well. So please just feel free to ask away because I am here and we're live and this is the best time to get questions answered. So I have palm shortening in a skillet. We make this in a skillet. If you don't have a skillet, I get that question a lot. You can totally do this in a Pyrex or even like a cake pan, so don't worry about it if you don't have a skillet. The skillet just helps kind of give it a nice little brown on the bottom, a little bit of a crisp on the bottom. Plus, who doesn't like eating cornbread out of a skillet? It just kind of feels like the real deal. So if you're not familiar with palm shortening, this is what it looks like when it's solid. And I'm melting it in the pan just so that we end up greasing the pan at the same time. It melts it, and then we'll put it into our stand mixer. And if you can't find palm shortening or you can't find a sustainable, eco-friendly source, I get mine from Tropical Traditions. They've been running the same farms for years and years and years and years, and they are awesome, sustainable brand, small business, which I love, and so I always love supporting them. I get this massive, let's see, it's 112 ounces, so this big tub, and it lasts forever. And they do free shipping all the time, and so it ends up being, I think, like 15 or 20 bucks for that big thing. And so it's a great high heat fat to cook with, especially for baking because there's not much of a flavor to it, and so it's a really good dairy-free alternative to butter. It gives things like this cornbread or cake kind of a cakey consistency, and so it makes it a lot less dense than like a coconut oil. So that's why I like to use it. So we're just melting that. While that's melting, if you have any questions, please shout them out. And I'm going to make sure I've got everything I need here. I do, and a sip of water.
Danielle, what's the benefit of palm shortening?
So I wouldn't say that there's a benefit of palm shortening necessarily in terms of health, just that it's free of trans fats and it's dairy-free. So honestly, if you can tolerate dairy, I think grass-fed butter has more health benefits, and I think that is absolutely fine to use, but this is just really a great thing to bake with, just if you can't have any dairy at all. So that's kind of why I use it. And like I said, it makes things a lot less dense than coconut oil. So that's kind of the benefit to it in terms of cooking.
So you would not recommend using coconut oil then?
For certain things, you can. For something like this, I will tell you, you can do it, but you're going to get a much more dense cake, or it's not going to be kind of that airy, crumbly cornbread that you're used to. So, all right, so this is a 10-inch pan. That's what I call for in the recipe. I'm just going to swirl around the oil a little bit just so that it coats the sides so that when we bake the bread in here, doesn't stick. And then I'm just pouring this all right into my stand mixer. And I'm gonna keep this pan on low, really low heat, just to keep it warm. And I have my oven preheated to 350 degrees. All right, any other questions?
Is that a cast iron skillet in over?
Yes, it is. I'll leave a link for it afterwards. So this is cast iron, but it's enamel coated. If you have a really greatly seasoned cast iron, that'll work just fine. But this one I like because it's just a little easier for cleanup. So I'm adding my almond milk. Again, if you don't have almond milk, you can use cashew milk. If you don't have a problem with dairy, you can totally use regular milk in this. It's a pretty easy sub for this one. Okay, and then also from Tropical Traditions, I have this massive thing of honey. It is so heavy, but I love it, especially for all the testing that I do, because it lasts me forever. And you'll notice, sorry, just grabbing a knife. You'll notice in celebrations, I call for light colored honey, and that has to do, oh gosh, this has been sitting out in the garage, and it's cold, and so it's kind of hard. It's like this yummy, creamy, solid honey. So I'm gonna try to get it out of here. So the reason why I call for light colored honey as opposed to like something like this, where it's pretty dark, you can see the difference in the color, is because this gives you a lighter flavor. It's not going to have like a super overwhelming honey flavor to it, which some people just really don't like all of their baked goods that are grain-free and refined sugar-free to taste like honey, which I totally understand. This particular recipe, honey kind of tastes good because I think, you know, I always used to put honey on top of my cornbread. So I like it in this recipe, but for things like my birthday cakes that are in this book, things like that, you want to try to use this light colored, or the drinks, because it doesn't overpower the recipe, plus for color. So for instance, for the white cake, the vanilla cake, if you don't want like a super dark, kind of dark yellow cake, you want to use this light colored honey, and that'll help get that color that you want, and it'll look a little bit more like a conventional baked good. All right, well, I scrape this out. Any other questions?
What brand of almond milk do you use?
So I try to make it myself when I can. If I don't have time, which is frequently, if I'll be honest, I like to use the New Barn brand of almond milk. Somebody asked what almond milk I like to use. So the New Barn's a good one. Recently, actually, our Safeway started carrying an organic almond milk. It's right next to the regular milk in the fridge. And it has pretty decent ingredients in it. It still is somewhat fortified, but it's actually pretty good, and the flavor is good, and it's organic, which is kind of hard to find. And that's at a big grocery store. So that's another place that I like to get it from. But those are two brands, the New Barn and then Safeway. Okay, I'm adding some apple cider vinegar. So if you ever see apple cider vinegar in my recipes and you're wondering why, it's because without gluten or yeast when you're baking to help things rise, apple cider vinegar reacts with baking soda, and it helps give it air bubbles. So the vinegar, the acid in it helps react. So that's why. It's not because I like the taste of apple cider vinegar or anything like that. Excuse me, I have a tickle in my throat. Our family is getting over colds. It's been a long couple weeks, but we're almost there. So I'm just gonna get this smooth here. Right. I'm going to scrape down. That honey is somewhat solid, unfortunately. Okay, any other questions?
This is off topic, Danielle, but can you freeze your ranch dressing?
That's a great question. Can you freeze my ranch dressing? You know what? Frozen and defrosted mayonnaise worries me a little bit. What you might want to do is make it with just without the mayonnaise and get everything else together. Like if you're worried about maybe you have herbs that are going to go bad, I would say freeze that and then defrost it and add your mayo. I just think that mayonnaise frozen that's going to defrost is going to separate. I haven't personally tried it, so if anybody has and they've had success, great. But that concerns me a little bit because I think mayonnaise needs to be fresh, and I think the emulsification of the mayonnaise, of that oil and the eggs might separate if you freeze it. So I'm not sure, but if you try it, let me know, because I always have extra and it'd be nice to freeze it. So I'm adding my eggs one at a time. This just helps create some air bubbles in the batter. So I beat them really quickly, and then I'll add another one every couple seconds. And I love these eggs. So in case you're wondering the difference, it took me a while to learn the difference between eggs, but these are Vital Farms and they're pasture raised. So there's all sorts of labels on eggs. You'll see organic, you'll see free range, you'll see soy free, you'll see all sorts of stuff. Pasture raised, especially if they claim that they're 100% pasture raised, means that the chickens are free to forage on the ground like they're supposed to, which is great. So chickens were not technically meant to be fed a feed of corn and soy and grains and everything, but oftentimes they have to be because there's just not enough land for them to roam on. And so there's some different farming practices that they move their pens, and it helps actually make the farming better, but also helps the chickens be able to just continue to forage on the bugs and things on the ground, which is what they're supposed to do. So you're going to get this really bright orange color. They're better for you, but that's what you want to look for if you can. Okay, I'm splattering a little bit, but I'm going to add the rest of my eggs, and then we'll get to our flours.
Kimberly says that her mayonnaise froze in the back of her fridge recently, and she never could get it to work or taste right again.
That's kind of what I figured. So Kimberly just said her mayonnaise accidentally froze in the back of her fridge, which that happens to me too. Your back of your fridge is like a whole other zone for some reason. And she never was able to get it to come back together and taste the same, which I imagine would happen. So that's kind of why I warn against it. I would say I have a video on my YouTube channel, and if you do freeze it, or Kimberly, if you still have that mayonnaise, you might be able to add a little bit of oil and re-emulsify it by blending it. I have a video on my YouTube channel of how to fix a broken mayonnaise. So if you've ever made homemade mayonnaise and you've had it kind of curdle on you or be really runny, you can fix it, kind of like a broken hollandaise sauce. So I have a video on that, so you could watch that, and you might be able to use that same trick to get it to come back together, but I can't guarantee it. All right, that's my last day. And so I've got a combination of baking soda and baking powder. Baking powder that you buy in the grocery store is going to have a starch in it, whether it's cornstarch or potato starch. So I like to make it myself. There's a recipe for it in the same book. If you're joining late, again, we're making my grain-free, gluten-free skillet cornbread from Celebrations. But you can find recipes on it online too. But baking powder basically is cream of tartar mixed with baking soda. And so I make my own, and I just keep it in this jar. And then you can keep it starch-free. If you notice it clumping, you can always add a little bit of arrowroot starch so that at least it stays grain-free. But I don't notice that I have a problem. I just mix it up so that it all, if it's separated, that it all kind of comes back together. And it works great. And then this is baking soda, so I'm doing a little bit of both that helps give it just a really nice rise. And then just a little bit of salt, especially because we're not using any butter in this. I like to have a little bit of salt to kind of offset the sweetness of the honey. And the almond flour kind of has a natural sweetness too. So I have a mix of almond flour and coconut flour here. So one thing, if you read the beginning of all of my books, I always talk about how important it is to get a good quality almond flour. I recommend brands in the beginning of all my books and the ingredient glossaries, but if you're coming out with soggy things or things are taking too long to bake, or they're kind of gritty, or they're sinking in the middle, typically your culprit is your almond flour. Your coconut flour could also be the problem. It's kind of frustrating, but all brands of coconut flour vary on their absorption. And so try to pick one of the ones that I recommend if you can. If you're having trouble, switch the brand and just see if that helps. All right, so we're just going to mix this up, make sure that I'm not missing anything. Yes, I still follow my own recipes. I've written over 800 recipes or something of that sort. There's like 300 between my 3 books, or 400 between my 3 books, and then another 300 or 400 on my blog. So I can't keep up with them all. People always laugh that I have to follow my own recipes, but I don't have them all memorized. I think the only one that I have in my head completely memorized is the Real Deal chocolate chip cookies, because I make them almost every week for my kids, and so that one I know by heart.
Danielle, Michael wants to know what kind of brand mixer are you using, and how do you use the glass bowl when you're using it?
Say the last question again. I heard the mixer.
The glass bowl.
Oh, so this is a KitchenAid stand mixer. I can leave a link, and the glass bowl is just an option as an add-on. Quite honestly, the only reason why I use the glass bowl is because that way you guys can see what I'm doing. In my, I have the metal one and I use that a lot of the times too, but the glass bowl is fun. You just have to be careful when you're washing it because I've cracked the edge a couple times because I'm not careful enough in the sink. All right, so I'm gonna turn my skillet off there because we've got the oven preheated. I just wanted to keep the skillet warm. And I'm just going to spoon all of this in. So
Is there a good alternative, Danielle, to the almond flour?
So it depends. All right, if you're looking for completely nut-free, a good alternative would be finely ground sunflower seeds that are raw. You want to grind them really finely and then pass them through like a mesh sifter to make sure you get any big fragments out of there, and don't get roasted or anything like that because that'll taste kind of gross. But cashew flour is definitely the best alternative to almond if you just have an almond allergy and you can do other nuts. Let me throw this in to the oven really quick and then I'll come back and answer some more questions. Make sure my handle's not hot. Oh, it is hot. Okay. All right, so that's in. It takes 25, 30 minutes, depending on how hot your oven runs. And so tonight, I'm already testing recipes for my next book. Believe it or not, it won't be out for another year and a half or so, but I have to get testing early on. And so tonight I'm actually testing for the second time. We got it pretty close last time, but the meat needed to be a little more tender. And I'm testing my husband's grandma's stew recipe. So I've got it in the Instant Pot there. I wanted to do both a stovetop version for you guys and an Instant Pot or slow cooker for the book so that you can make it kind of however you want. And so we're having that tonight. Like I said, it's cold and rainy, and so this is going to taste so good with it. And then if we have extra cornbread, I'm really craving chili. So I probably will make either the traditional chili from my first book, or we've been loving this one that's in the slow cooker from the Super Bowl chapter. This is the green chili chicken soup, so it's not quite chili, but this is done in a slow cooker, and it's one of our favorite things too. So the thing I love to remind people about this book is even though it's called Celebrations, and there's a celebration for every month, so there's 12 chapters, over 125 recipes in here, but you can use so many of these things for your every weeknight meals. Of course, you're not going to be making one of the big 4-tiered birthday cakes on a Wednesday night unless you're celebrating a birthday. But so much of it you can use throughout the week. So those 2 recipes I just mentioned, we eat those a lot, and those are on our rotation frequently. So cornbread is from this book. And you can get it right now on Amazon for 40% off. So it's like $20, I think, $20.50 or something like that. So it's a super good deal. Any other questions while I start cleaning up?
Melissa wants to know if you could use a sweetener instead of honey.
Like any sweetener, Melissa. You could use maple syrup if you wanted to. I mean, again, like I said, I think the honey flavor is kind of necessary in cornbread, but you could definitely do maple syrup. And the only thing I would caution against is using a powdered sweetener, just because the liquid from the honey and also the acid kind of helps react to with baking soda. But if you're going to do a powdered one and substitute in something else, you may need to add a little bit of extra, like almond milk or a little dash of water or something, just to make the batter the consistency that you saw with that one.
Jessica said she added rosemary that pairs really well with the sweetness.
Ooh, that sounds good. Jessica added rosemary. Yeah, you could totally have fun with it and kind of add some different herbs and stuff like that. I think that would be great. We've just done some parsley on top just as like a garnish, but rosemary would be delicious. Anybody else?
Someone wants to know what kind of skillet do you have?
So I have a few different ones. The one I was just using, I'll link to it, but it's one of my favorites. I have a lot of Le Creuset that I love. Sorry, I'm just unplugging this so I don't knock it over. I love Le Creuset. That one was a stub, but I'll leave a link for them. They're just really, really durable. They are not non-stick, so they're non-toxic, and they clean up really well. So they're a good investment, honestly. They're definitely good pans. All right, if there's any other questions, shout them out. I will go back on and leave some of those links that I mentioned. and answer any questions that we couldn't get to. But thank you guys so much for being here. I'm gonna wait for that timer to go off. I'm gonna have to do a quick release on my stew here with this Instant Pot, and then we will be all ready for dinner. So thanks so much for being here, you guys. I will see you next Tuesday again at 4 p.m. Pacific. And if there's anything that you want to see me make from my books or whatever, please leave a comment below so that maybe I can add it to the list and I can add it to one of my Facebook Lives. Oh, I have one other thing, sorry. So I was going through my stock of books, and somehow my first book I signed to somebody named Christine, and it never got given to whoever Christine is, and so I have a book that's signed to Christine. So I'm going to find somebody in this feed named Christine, and I'm going to reply to your comment. And if you're in the United States or Canada, I'm going to send you this book. It's signed to Christine. So if you're watching and you are Christine or you know a Christine, have them comment, because you could very well win a copy signed to you or to another Christine, but now it's to you. So again, I'll see you guys next Tuesday, 4 p.m. Pacific. Thanks so much for joining me. And if you join late, you can rewind, watch this anytime. You can also watch any of my old Facebook Live videos on my Facebook page if you click on the videos tab. Or you can watch most of them on my YouTube channel, where there's also dozens and dozens of cooking recipe videos, kind of just like this. So thanks, guys. We will see you next week. Have a good week.